Welcome to the Narrative House podcast. I'm your host Rayyan. The Prophet ﷺ mentioned in the hadith, مثل المؤمنين في توادهم وتراحمهم وتعاطفهم مثل الجسد. The Prophet ﷺ, he says that the believers in their mutual love, respect and mercy for one another is like one body. إذا اشتكى منه عضو تداعى سائر الجسد بالسحر والحمى. That when one part of the body is in pain or is hurting, then the other parts are in sleeplessness and fever. The ongoing genocide that we are witnessing in Gaza has struck a chord with many Muslims and non-Muslims around the world. Up to, or official records say, around 40,000 people have been killed, but we know much more have been killed in the conflict, more than half of which have been children and women. Alhamdulillah, today we have a brother who has been underground in Gaza as a healthcare worker. He has been there since the start of the conflict and has recently arrived in Doha. This brother is our dear and beloved brother Ahmed Quta. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam. Ahlan feekum.
Jazakallah khair for joining us on the Narrative House podcast. Now, Brother Ahmed, you are a Canadian citizen. You were raised in Canada. How did you end up in Gaza?
So originally, we were raised, technically born and raised in Canada. Yes, all my siblings were born in Canada. I'm the only one in my family that was born in Gaza. My family every couple of years they go to Gaza for a visit, and then during one of the times they visited, alhamdulillah, they got me officially made in Gaza.
Alhamdulillah.
So every couple of years we go for a visit. After I finished high school in Canada, I went to Gaza, was supposedly to be a visit, and then I found myself enrolled in university. I was enrolled in nursing, and it was something I was never thinking of, or I never really seen myself as a nurse. But alhamdulillah, it's a plan that Allah chose for us.
So subhanallah, you went to Gaza on a holiday, essentially, as a family holiday, and then you enrolled yourself into a nursing course. So what was the thinking behind that?
The plan, like for myself, I never wanted to study in Gaza just because of the way a lot of people maybe have a point of view about it. My older siblings, they went to study in Gaza. I always had a talk with my dad. I'm like, people leave Arab countries or Middle Eastern countries to study in a more westernized place, or in a more place that your degree might be stronger. And recently, I realized actually studying does not matter where you study. It matters about the type of study you take, or it matters about how wise or how different you become after the study you take, or how you implement it in the best way possible. So there was a plan of perhaps studying, or there was a chance of studying back home, but I was totally against it, and I went to Gaza as a I wanted to be into physiotherapy. It's still in the health field, but it's completely different than being a nurse. However, later on I found myself running into the in the field of nursing.
Oh, subhanallah. So when you were growing up in Canada and you were sort of looking for a pathway, you're a young man, like you're, I think 23, 24, 24 years old at the moment. Young man in Canada, sort of looking at his career aspirations, what he wants to do in the future. Did you always sort of have an affinity with, learning about the human body, going into the medical profession, helping other people? Was that something that was always a part of who you were when you were growing up?
Part of helping other people is always something. Even when I was young, I always used to see my parents do it, my family do it. In the Islamic community we were always in, we were always at fundraiser events for a catastrophe that happened in Palestine, in Syria, in all places around the world. It was always something I did to look at myself in years coming. I can be somebody that can give help, but I never thought I would be able to give it or serve it as a healthcare worker in the way we recently done it in Gaza and to a lot of different people.
So, having studied in Gaza in the medical health profession, what sort of distinguishes the learning and the type of study that you do in Gaza or that you did in Gaza from like the conventional way that it's studied in Western universities? And I say this because I completed my undergraduate degree in the Middle East as well. So you know, um, I deliberately chose that path of learning in the Middle East. I just want to know what did you find to be sort of some of the things that distinguished studying in that field in Gaza?
So there is a big transition from studying outside and studying back home. The way university worked in Gaza, it was more of it's more like where universities are everywhere. There's certain credits you have, there's certain years. It's a program, and depending on you can finish this program in the amount of years that it's made. If you want to slack off a little bit, take breaks, you can finish it in 5 years, 6 years, 7 years. It's your choice. If you want to put your head in your mind and actually finish it up, you will. But again, the transition was a little bit with the language barrier. The transition was with the way that the teaching is being done. You're always used to a certain type of teaching, and then it's like you're entering a different school of learning. You're making it makes sense to make new friends because once you leave high school, wherever you were, and you go to a new university, you can perhaps leave the town you're in or wherever, and you have to make new friends. So for me, that wasn't a big problem. I'm used to being accommodated to or getting used to any place I could live in. But the major difference was the way the program really ran. We used to have 3 days of theory and then 2 days of clinical. So it was like it wasn't everything was like all theory. It wasn't all clinical. It was a mix and match. So it makes you feel like you're actually studying an actual program that you're going to be serving one day.
So can you tell us a bit about the clinical aspect? Because I'm imagining that it would be way different to the way nursing is practiced in Canada, like where maybe as an undergraduate you'd probably get exposed to someone with the flu or just a minor injury. Um, what was clinical like in Gaza? So this was even before October 7.
The clinical aspect in Gaza, it gives you a more of a higher experience with certain injuries or different types of exposures that you're exposed to. For example, in Canada, I'm not sure I know the type of injuries that would come or like the I'm not sure exactly the type of program they have for nursing, but in Gaza, I remember the first day we went into the clinical field. At that time, it was the Great March of Return. I'm not sure if a lot of people know about it, but it was
Maybe just tell a bit about it so for our audience.
when people from Gaza they wanted to, because Gaza and all Palestine is occupied Palestine, so they wanted to go back. A lot of people from Gaza, the majority are they're originally refugees, so they immigrated from other cities from Palestine into Gaza. So because of the Great March of Return, they wanted to go to the border and go back to their lands, and then the troops of the IOF were on the other side of the border, and they would be shooting at people that get near to the big fence that's made. The bullets that were used, they weren't like normal bullets that would perhaps enter the leg or enter certain part of the body and then so enter and then exit. That's a simple wound for a bullet type of injury, but the bullets that were used were mostly explosive bullets, rubber bullets. So this type of bullet, when it hits the human body, it explodes, and when it explodes in your leg, in your hand, in a certain type of your body, it's very critical that it will cause an amputation on the spot, and it will cause fractures in the bone, in your it will have not just it will be crushed and heavy types of bone fractures. So I remember the first time we went to the clinical. It was second year, and somebody that was only about 17 to 18 years old. As a nurse, when you thought you're going to go to clinicals, you're going to see some type of cute injury or something like as small as like a suture or like a small wound post operation. So somebody that had an operation and you're just going to like clean this wound, do a simple dressing for it. So when you enter the department and you're looking at these wounds and you're like, this is not what I signed up for. I never thought it would be something like this. Even we were a group of seven students. I remember two of them automatically when they saw the injury, they fainted from how bad it was. And the injury, it was all the tissue, all the muscle, everything in the lower part of the left leg. And unfortunately, this patient actually had an amputation 2 months later. We were at a surgical department, and then when we had a rotation, uh, during our rotations, 2 months later, we were at the orthopedic. Orthopedic department, and we found out that this patient had an amputation. But the dressing that this patient, when we were moving when we were opening up the wound to see it, it was the only thing that's shown from his leg was the two bones, the fibula and the tibia. And when we were passing the gauze, when I was passing the gauze to my to another student, which was my colleague at the time, we were giving it through the bone of his leg, through the two bones. So some of the students, when they come and see this at first eye, it's like they faint. They're like, no, we can't. We've never been open to this amount of blood or this exposure of injuries and everything. So I believe having studying clinical or doing the clinical aspect in a third world country or in a place like Gaza where there's escalations every couple months, where there's a war every couple years, it's the amount of injuries is it's the standards are expected from you to be at a higher level. So you're just very more open. So you have a lot more experience with these types of injuries, and like you know you've seen stuff that nobody perhaps have seen even before life.
So
October
just like
7th.
being in Gaza, learning in the the healthcare profession, it sort of accelerates your learning in a way. And I think that's a misconception that a lot of people have in the West, is that the education in the Middle East or in the Muslim world is substandard. Now, let's just fast forward a bit. Um, you're a nurse and working in Shifa Hospital, um, and what we see being what we see unfolding now begins. Can you tell us um, what this was like for you, or how it sort of started? How did it unfold?
So for recently, I graduated nursing in 2021, and then I entered a master's in health management and administration. I later on finished all my courses. I went for a visit during the summer of 2022, and then I went back to Gaza, and I went back again outside, and I made it to Gaza only 3 weeks before October 7th actually happened. And I remember that the morning was everybody was shocked. Everybody was like had no idea about what's going on until we understood about what's happening in the news. Uh, a week or a couple days after, we were seeing that this wasn't a normal war. Even like the word genocide right now, I would believe, or I would say it doesn't really describe what's happening in Gaza. So with all the injuries, with the amount of martyrs in a couple days, we passed 1,000, 2,000 martyrs in Gaza with over 5,000 injuries. Usually this would happen in a war that lasts for 50, 60 days. These numbers, so the numbers were just very high. You can expect the amount of injuries at the hospitals were just overflowing. So then there was a news that the hospitals needed volunteers, needed people that had like their certificate and everything all done in order to volunteer at the hospital. So a couple days after October 7th, I was like, this is what it is. You studied. This is the moment that your people need you. I had my uniform. I went to the hospital, and in the ER, in the emergency department, it's where I completed all my postgraduate hours, and it was the place I wanted to serve in. So I went and I spoke with the head department over there, and he's like, tomorrow your shift. And I remember that day I didn't go home because it was a little bit close to Maghrib, close to sunset. And of course, it's very hard to find the car at the very beginning. You can't be moving at night, and everything is just very dangerous. So I stayed all night as like an orientation, as it's like, okay, you're seeing how the process is. You're not officially, it's not officially your schedule. And the next morning, it was the first. So it was when I started being just part of the team and everybody.
Subhanallah. And so in that moment, you sort of saw it as your responsibility. And I recently watched one of your posts where you mentioned the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, كلكم راع وكلكم مسؤول عن رعيته, right? That where the Prophet ﷺ says that all of you are shepherds and each one of you is in charge of your flock. And so this hadith pertains to the responsibility that everyone has within their sphere of influence and capability. And so at that moment, did you see that this was going to be your role? Because I know you were stuck in the north for a while, that this was your role in Gaza at that point in time?
It was a responsibility for everyone, and everybody will take this hadith or take the narration upon their own perspective or their own point of view. Some people that have the opportunity to go out and serve and help, even with a bigger experience than what I had, but they would take another responsibility of, I have a family, I'm gonna just stick with them, take care of them. At that time, I was like, family, there's a God that caused all this to happen, and Allah won't forget them. There's other people that might need the help that I'm able to give. So I did see it as it's a way of giving, first of all, and it's a way of you've been chosen to be in a situation like this, and you have the opportunity right now with whatever experience you have, with whatever degree you have, to serve, and you're one of the first line people of defending. You're one of the first line for the people of actually serving out. So it is a responsibility that automatically, if you understand the meaning properly of كلكم راع وكلكم مسؤول عن رعيته, and the depth that this hadith takes, it's not just being in Gaza that you have this responsibility. The whole Islamic Ummah, all everybody, no matter how much of an influence you had, no matter how old, how young you are, everybody has a certain responsibility in life, and this just brings the fact that everything happening right now is for you to be tested. People think that you're only tested in bad ways, like you're in Gaza, you're being tested. Unfortunately, you're not. Allah gives you wealth to be tested upon it. He gives you health. He gives you a body, and you're in a test. He gives you everything possible, if it was good or if it was bad. The good is to see the result of what you're going to do. Like, for example, when he gives you wealth, what are you going to do with this wealth? Are you just going to buy video games or buy drugs or buy whatsoever, and spend it on stuff that aren't going to be benefiting other people? And when he gives you health, what are you going to use this body for? Are you just going to keep ripping it at the gym? Are you going to keep showing off to whatsoever, and like, oh, I have such a nice body, I have so much power, I'm so strong? Or are you going to be using this body with the help of others, in what other way it is? And the same thing when you're being tested in a bad way. We don't call it a bad way, we call it ibtila. And then there's a saying, in Allah idha habba abdan ibtalah. If Allah truly loved a person, or loved one of the people, we're all people for Allah. We're created to serve Allah at the end of the day. So we're all servants of Allah, and if Allah loves one of his servants, he's going to put him in a test, which is an ibtila, and a test more of a bad way, and to see how strong you are, what way you're going to take this test. A lot of people can be like, I didn't sign up for this. What good is coming out of this war? What's going to happen? And then there's others that essentially pass this test, or they just say, قدر الله ما شاء فعل. Alhamdulillah, it's Allah's plan, and there is as much as there's bad results, as much as people are dying, as much as injuries are causing, as much as people in Gaza over 200 and almost 45 days, they are living the worst life ever. They still believe, or I'll talk about myself, I still believe that all of this happened for a cause, and we seen some good impacts around the world that's happening from the situation that happened in Gaza. A lot of people around the world, they started waking up to understand what is the Palestinian cause, what is the Islamic propaganda that's happening? Why are we so wiped off with what westernizers are teaching us with what colonizers they want the world to understand? Rather, they're seeing raw material. They're seeing people from Gaza that are not just living it, but they're actually influencing and trying to show the world what's happening. So you have a test in any way possible. If it was being a good person and having good, or in being in a bad situation and accepting.
I think that's one of the amazing things that we've all witnessed anyway from the people of Gaza is when I was listening to you speak about ibtila, about tests and trials, that one can respond in a way where he says, Alhamdulillah, this is a test from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, hasbunallahu wa ni'mal wakil. Or he could, respond in a different way. Now, you being in Gaza, uh, up until recently, you only came to Doha about 2 weeks ago. So you've experienced it for close to 8 months. Were there any there probably is hundreds and thousands of moments like this, but for you, but were there any moments that you saw like this being embodied in an event or in an incident or in a moment where you saw someone being tested and trialed in a way, and you saw them have that resilience, that response, that sort of perspective where they said, Hasbunallah wa ni'mal wakil?
Every single day, we would not see not just one small story of these reactions, but plenty of them. Because it's not just one airstrike that's coming, or not one attack that's coming, or like once a week, or once a day, or once every couple of days. Especially being at the hospital, seeing bodies come in, being wrapped, going back out, or bodies coming dead, bodies giving out their last gasps, people injured themselves. The words on their tongue would be like ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, alhamdulillah, this is from Allah, and we're accepting what it is, what it is. One small story I was seeing. It was a woman in Gaza, and people in Gaza are like people around the world, not Gaza. When they lose one person, they grieve for him so much, and they won't even accept perhaps the way he died in, or if he was killed or something. And then you just see women in Gaza or men in Gaza. You think that this is the first time he's lost somebody, and then the next moment you hear, it's okay, ما هو هذا آخر واحد راح عند ربنا راح عند الأحسن منا. So this is the fifth. This is my fifth person losing. So a mother losing five of her children at different moments. Imagine the trauma that she's supposed to be in. Imagine the horrific situation she's supposed to be in. I'm not saying the people of Gaza are rocks. They don't have feelings. They don't feel. They do. And this will all show, especially after the next day of a ceasefire, or a next day of when the war ends. A lot of people will wake up to the people they're missing. A lot of people will wake up to their homes that have been destroyed, to the areas that have been gone. I'm one of the people that suffered this, and there was a carpet bombing that happened right to us. All our my whole neighborhood was gone. About maybe 700 martyrs have been gone in that area. My aunts, my relatives, people I was just sleeping with, people I had meals with, people I had fights with, people we went out on trips on a lot of stuff, and you just, in a moment, a blink of an eye, they're gone. In a blink of an eye, you feel like what's happening? Where are you? But at the end of the day, you really can't just go and sit next to them, or like.
And you're talking specifically in reference to that post that you posted, where you documented, you were filming the carpet bombing that happened in your residential area, the place where you slept. And I remember seeing that clip, and it was just, you saw this massive crater, and you pointed to this area and said, this was the place that I slept. And subhanallah, like you were supposed to be there, like this is the place that you lived, but you went out for a moment, and you came back, and everything was completely destroyed. I mean, what we all have that theoretical understanding that ajal, or that lifespan, is in the hands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That قل إن الموت الذين تفرون منه فإنه ملاقيكم. That this this death that we're trying to flee from, it's going to meet us, and when that time comes, it's going to hit its spot. It wasn't meant to be your time. In that moment, what were you feeling? What were you thinking when you saw that? And I'm assuming as well that you probably lost a lot of loved ones as well in that
So
incident.
before I saw the scene in my eyes, I lived that carpet bombing, and that was the biggest carpet bombing until today, in since October 7th. Living it, I was only about 10 meters away from that carpet bombing. And actually, I'll tell you something. People in Gaza, when they hear the word carpet bombing, their hands are always they're holding their hearts from the 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 trauma and the fear that the word carpet bombing. It might sound like, oh, carpet bombing. Some people don't even understand what carpet bombing is, but living it, having that feeling, that day, I felt like I saw my soul leave my body, and I felt like I was seeing the angel of death, but he's not taking my soul because it was 12 consecutive hits, and you being only 10 meters away, you can hear each one as it's exploding your earlobes. You can hear it. You could hear your heartbeat pumping in your brain, not knowing, am I next? Am I not? Okay, and then you have a rewind, a scene in the back of your head. I'm not going to be part of this world anymore. My family is not going to see me anymore. The last moment between me and X so and so was this and that. I wish it was something else. It's like all these moments are just a mix and match of in your brain while you're hearing all these bombardments. And at the same time, as somebody trying to document what's happening, whenever I hear something, the first movement in my hands, like I just take my phone out of my pocket to camera mode and trying to just photo. And while all this is happening, my hand just automatically taking it out. And I have my other hand just saying Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. I remember saying Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah about like maybe 50 times in a span of 45 seconds. All these moments together, it's like, I'm not dead. Wait, I'm still alive. And then after you went and you seen I've seen what the carpet bombing has done and everything, and like we were just sleeping over here, and my family's still under the rubble. My relatives are here. The house, the like in Gaza, it's not easy for somebody to build a house. People will literally be years saving up in order to build something, and then you seeing people tearing up for not the house that's gone, but for their loved ones that are inside. For as hard as it is for people in Gaza to build something, money at the end of the day was last of their worries, as much as it was they loved somebody and he's gone. And people in Gaza, they have a weird love relationship, because I could be sitting with you, I'm not going to show you that I love you, but the moment something happens to you, he's the first one there. I was in critical death moments about 9 times in being in Gaza. The first thing that came on top of my head, my message is still not over. I have a message. God chose me to be in this situation. God chose me to experience this sort of not general. This specifically, God chose me to experience being at the hospital. God chose me to see so and so happen right in front of my eyes. This means you gotta translate this in your way, in your point of view. There's people waiting. There's people that it's your responsibility now to go and show this to. It's your responsibility to go and translate it in a language they will
You know,
understand.
I read a study once where 4.5 million people have been killed as a result of the conflict in Iraq alone, and but this was not documented. It wasn't the time of social media. It wasn't the time in which people got their news through their phones. This was the time of mainstream media, CNN, Fox News, and so people, they had, the people in power had control over the narrative. Whereas now, with the advent of these technologies, young people like yourself were able to document things and publicize them to the world. And I think that this is part of, you know, it's a fundamental part of our deen. You know, من رأى منكم المنكر فليغيره بيده فإن لم يستطع فبلسانه. That, you know, if you see an evil, change it with your hand. If you can't, then say it with your tongue. And you know, this idea that you spoke about translating what's happening for the rest of the world is incredibly important, right? Um, as Muslims, as people living in this world, it's important for us to convey this message. And I think, you know, what you guys were doing, you were demonstrating that in word and in practice as well, in word and in deed. Now, you all of these things were happening. This was happening in the north of Gaza, صح? So this was at a time, I think, when people were fleeing to the south, right? So you're seeing all of this carnage, death, destruction, bombs being dropped in the north of Gaza. What what made you stay? Why did you decide to stay in the north and not flee with everyone else to the south?
So the story of fleeing to the south, it's quite different for me. I was at the hospital. By the time I got home, like my family messaged me before, make it home. We're going to the south. By the time I got home, it's also a very big story to explain. So by the time I got home, I found my family all gone, and I was like, if they're gone, then I'm just gonna stay here, like as if there's nobody to accommodate you on the way, accommodate you to go to safety. So you're gonna stay and probably die in the north. I found the area I was in still had a lot of people, and I was against the idea of like you're leaving to the south, you're literally giving up, you're doing what they want, and it's not what's supposed to be happening. I know there's a high possibility a lot of people that die, and then you tell people in the south, they're like, well, they told you to go to the south. Why did you stay in the north? And that's how they would uh, make an excuse for all the. They always have ways of making excuses. That was the excuse of making it of killing people or like demolishing. It's like, hey, the north is empty. It wasn't. There was about 800,000 people in the north until recently. It slightly went below, and the north is still full of people. And we've seen that in the recent weeks, or recent times, where people were continuously showing, look, the north still has massacres. The north still has a lot of people. So what made me choose staying in the north? As I said, there I believed there was something I can still give. I believe there was something I can still show. A lot of the news reports, a lot of the people on social media, they were forced to go to the south after the invasion of the hospital, or like as everybody was fleeing. Their whole families were already in the south, so they had no option. They fled to the south. I was one of the people that I felt like there weren't, or at that time there wasn't English speakers in the north to actually show what's happening in the north. And it was more of I was really against the idea of leaving, and I didn't want to do something I was myself against, and I just found myself stuck there, and I wasn't just stuck not doing anything. The next day, they invaded the Shifa hospital, and I was out. There were a lot of injuries, a lot of people in our area that they needed a nurse, and they're like, oh hey, so and so Ahmed is here, you guys can ask him and see. So remember, after the invasion of Shifa hospital, I was there were plenty of patients in our area, injuries, and people that I was doing their dressings and getting them medications and different stuff. So I was there. It was still a different source of service, even though, yeah, at that time you weren't able to show anything on social media because the whole service was out, the internet was out, the all the types of services were.
Was out. And despite that, subhanallah, like we did see, uh, you know, messages coming still, right? I think you documented, for example, the aid that was being parachuted, and you sort of mocked it in one of your posts, where you have this picture of you, and you're sort of giving you have a selfie of yourself, and you see these aid packages being parachuted, and you sort of joked that, you know, these are as useful as this selfie or something like this, right? You sort of joked around about it, that this was basically useless. Um, you know, and you had this. There was another post as well that you did about the actual package. What was this? What was the intent behind the post?
So the first time people in Gaza haven't really seen actual airplanes or army airplanes. So when they saw it, a lot of people were like excited for it, and then they like you know the people of Gaza when they get excited, they're very humble to the point that they were just being killed right now, and then they see something cool or like funny or like exciting, and they would get really excited for it, clapping and singing, and all the little kids and older people, and they would all start running to the place where this airdrop might fall. So at the very beginning, the airdrops that fell down, they fell in the ocean, and then the second time they fell, like continuously, they fell onto the behind the border, not even in Gaza. So it was like you're talking about airdrops that are coming into Gaza, and they're not even entering in Gaza, and people died drowning in order to go into the ocean and get some of these airdrops. And there's videos also as they're into the ocean and they're near the airdrop, they're being shot at. That's like when I took a selfie, and one of them, like a couple were behind me. I pointed out and I was like, this is the closest, or this is the only thing we'll benefit, is like having a selfie with these airdrops, because we weren't seeing any of them. They were going either to the north, 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 where at that time the IDF hasn't left that area, or they were going to either in the ocean or on the other border of not Gaza. Later on, when they started getting it into proper places to be fallen down, some people were actually saying we don't even want these airdrops to come, and then we were like, why? And then it's like, come look at how my house is made. After it's destroyed, he would have like a couple pieces of wood and like a curtain or something of a more of a wood thing, or like a small metal on the top. And he's like, if يدوب ماسك حاله, it's like it can barely hold itself. So if this airdrop comes, what's gonna happen? I got no house anymore, and what am I gonna benefit? Everybody's gonna come, run, try and take what they have, and I'm gonna only be left with a parachute. So it made sense. A lot of these would also, the parachutes would not even function properly, and they would fall straight on people. There were always also people that died. At that time in Gaza, we were like, people of Gaza officially completed all the ways of facing death. They've died in all the ways possible. At that moment, more videos started coming up with the way how humiliating it was, because people of Gaza, they have dignity. I remember at the very beginning of the war, when I was at the Shifa hospital, some people were like, hey, we want to send out some money to people in need. I'm like, listen, I'm here. I see a lot of people in need. I could give it out to people. So I would go to families in Shifa hospital, and I can see their situation, to give them out some like very minimal, like very small amounts of cash, just to buy like basic stuff for them, for their family, or get medication or anything. And they would refuse it. Months later, they would come in an indirect way. Some, of course, in a direct way. They they didn't lose their dignity, but having dignity at that time was only going to starve them and cause them death. So some people, they were forced later on to come and ask, or come and be like, who knows anybody that's giving out food? And we all faced starvation. We all faced starvation in different ways, like the prices and the limited stuff that were in Gaza, specifically in the northern part of Gaza. A lot of people died due to starvation.
And it's the reminds me of the ayah of the Quran where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَنَبْلُوَنَّكُمْ بِشَيْءٍ مِّنَ الْخَوْفِ وَالْجُوعِ وَنَقْصٍ مِّنَ الْأَمْوَالِ وَالْأَنفُسِ وَالثَّمَرَاتِ فَبَشِّرِ الصَّابِرِينَ.
Exactly. Continue the ayah.
So subhanallah, like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this ayah says, وَلَنَبْلُوَنَّكُمْ بِشَيْءٍ, we will surely test you, بِشَيْءٍ مِّنَ الْخَوْفِ, of fear, من الخوف والجوع,
Hunger, starvation,
ونقص من الأموال, and
limited resources and money.
Yes, وبشر الصابرين. والأنفس, and yourselves,
your souls, your loved ones,
your dies, والثمرات, and your your crops. وبشر الصابرين, and glad tidings to those who are patient. And if you look at Gaza, like what you're describing, they experience every one of these. Every one of these.
That's the good part. We don't just look at the beginning of this ayah. We look at it. وَبَشِّرِ الصَّابِرِينَ. الذين إذا أصابتهم مصيبة قالوا إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. At the end, where are we going? To Allah we are, and to Him we shall return. Doesn't matter how we die, in what way we die, what ibtila we're faced, what test we're going through. At the end, we know we're going to die. We're going back to Allah. Even people like I was one of the people. I would wake up praying. I'm like, Ya Rab, it's been too long. We're already tired. We have no energy. Just let the next airstrike be at our place. Let's just take our souls. Allow us to be part of the people that are up in heaven to where you are. But again, it wasn't meant for you. It wasn't meant your time. It wasn't your time to leave this world. Because at the end of the day, Prophet ﷺ said, أعمار أمتي ما بين الستين والسبعين. So the lives of my ummah is between 60 and 70. So the 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 level of badness or the level of hell people in Gaza were living, they're like, you know what? We're dying at 60 and 70. Nobody's eternal. If anybody was supposed to be eternal in this life, Prophet Muhammad would have chose that, because when he died, the angel of death, he said, do you want to exactly just translate it in a simple form, do you want to stay in this world or do you want to go and see Allah? He said no. بل الرفيق الأعلى,
The highest
the
companion.
highest companion. So people in Gaza, they're like, at the end of the day, we're gonna die and we're gonna die. We're living to 60 years. We're gonna go take some debts. We're gonna try and live our life. We're gonna try. So you know what? Why don't we just die right now? Why don't just khalas, life just ends over here? It is how it is. And then a lot of people were even praying, Ya Rab aqim al-qiyamah, like make the day of judgment come, make the day of resurrection be here already.
You know, when I hear you speak like this, I wonder whether you had this realization, or was there a transformation when you were there? Did the tests that you were going through in Gaza, did that shape the way you think now?
It completely distinguished some thoughts. It promoted a lot of ideas that we used to always read, we used to always see, we used to always believe. I mean, believers are different. Some people would just believe in, oh, okay, I'm gonna pray. What am I praying for? And we know prayer is we say it in he تبدأ بعادة and then it's ibadah. So it starts as an action or like as a routine,
Norm,
yeah,
routine, yeah.
and then it's actual worship. So a lot of ayat from the Quran, a lot of verses, a lot of stories you hear, then you're like, wait, I am. What's happening? You would hear the stories of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the battles that they went through, the way he made, the way he spread Islam, he spread the word, he spread the Quran, and the way a lot of verses from the Quran, and then you're living this life. You're like, this fits right over here. This fits right over here. This fits right over here. To the point, like money in Gaza never meant anything at a point. The person at the highest class, the businessman, the person that had so much wealth, and the person that used to work nothing, or the person that we could say the lowest people of the status, they became to the same level. And this just made you think, wow, he has all this and he has nothing. This is the time where the ayah that says in about taqwa, you're all the same in the same level in the eyes of Allah, illa bittaqwa. Like just the people of faith, they're the ones that are closer to Allah, or they're the ones that have a higher status to Allah. This dunya, you can have you can be be a prime minister, but you're doing nothing, and you can be somebody so low in the society, yet your faith, yet what you're doing by your actions, by the responsibility you hold, in the eyes of Allah, your weight is much more than this person that everybody admires, or this influencer or celebrity everybody is seeing. It does make you defer in the idea of how you think, in the idea of how you see. And at the end of the day, in the Quran it says, إنما هذه الحياة الدنيا متاع والآخرة هي دار القرار. This dunya, this life, it's just a place for living and enjoying and doing everything whatever you want. But the actual life is the life of the day of resurrection. It's the day of of afterlife, after you die and after your life is back. And then when you're on the evacuation scale, the mizan of what goods you've done and what bads you've done, and what way more, and where your eternal place is going to be, either into Jannah or into hellfire. Or you can't say, oh, I'm so and so, I did this and I did this. It's either white or black on that day. So what you do in this life is what shows where you're going to go. And living in experiences and situations like this, not just for a small time, living in a time where you lose all the resources, the storages of food, of money, of everything is all gone. You're at a time, you remember during the time Prophet was giving out da'wah, when they were besieged for 3 years from the munafiqeen, from the disbelievers. And you're like, wow, they lived off paper trees. Subhanallah, you're going through the same. People outside think, like, oh, you're going to be a close person to Allah, or a close person to the scholars, but people of Gaza, they do believe that after all that's happened, and Ya Rab, we've been through so much, at least guarantee us Jannah. Jannah is not guaranteed for everyone, and all the people that die, die in the Quran, it says, uh, it's not, you don't guarantee somebody is a shaheed. نحسبهم, and this small word, it's we hope, or like we calculate him as a shaheed, or we count him as a shaheed, but at the end it's still Allah's decision on what his intention was. A lot of people, their intention is to help and talk and do, but from the inside, he has the intention of just people admiring him, or people saying, oh, so and so did this and that. But even the intention you have, just Islam is just so beautiful that it if you have a bad intention, you're not even going to get to the place you want.
I think one of the fascinating things about what you just said was that, as believers, you do what you can in accordance to your capacity, because you mentioned, for example, the prime minister. He may have all the authority, he's got this position of power, but does nothing, and then this guy that's lower, for example, is able to do something. And I think this is a very important point, because as that hadith that you mentioned before, that everyone's going to be accountable for what they could have done. Like, you are all shepherds, and each one of you is in charge of your flock. And this is such an important concept, not only on the individual level, but at the level of the ummah. Like, what's our responsibility of the ummah? And when you were mentioning things like, the best that, for example, the Jordanian government could do was to parachute some aid into Gaza. Did they really fulfill their responsibility? Like, when the Prophet ﷺ had passed away, the Sahaba, they said, أشهد يا أشهد يا حبيبي يا رسول الله أنك قد بلغت الرسالة وأنك قد أديت الأمانة. That we bear witness that you had indeed conveyed the message, that you had fulfilled your trust. Now, these people in authority, or when we look to the world today, these people are just standing idly by and watching these things happen, right? We are, alhamdulillah, we are a great ummah. We have vast resources. In terms of support, the Muslims in the surrounding countries are with the people of Palestine. We understand that the people of Gaza have these special qualities. The Prophet ﷺ, he said, "Khayr ribat al-asqalan." The best ribat. Ribat is the defense. How do you translate that in English? When you are charged with defending a territory, the best defending of that territory is in Asqalan, which is modern day Gaza. We understand
the border
that
of Gaza,
yes, the border of Gaza. We understand that this is a special place, that this is a special people, that this is a special land, Ard al-Muqaddasa, that this is the Holy Lands. What is the message that you want to give to the wider Muslim Ummah, having been there and experienced what you've experienced? What message do you want to send to the wider Ummah about their responsibility? Because this whole conversation has been centered on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. it's been centered on Islam. It's been centered on our cognition or our understanding of the akhirah, that this worldly life is only temporary, that we're only here for a short amount of time. What does this say about the way forward for us, or the way forward for Gaza?
So Gaza right now, the way a lot of people in Gaza see it, it's just so many leaders and so many countries. They have power and they're able to help. It reminds them of the story of the Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam, where he had so many brothers, and they didn't just not something actually happened to him. They made up a story that happened to him, and they went back to their father, and they said, "Oh, we were playing and the wolf just ate him, and we were only able to get back his his
His
yeah
shirt here.
his blouse." The people of Gaza, they started thinking that we are just like the story of Yusuf. We're like, we have all these people around us, yet they're all just they're watching, because at that time the brothers of Yusuf alayhi salam, they didn't just they watch, as I said, they came up with their story, and throughout the whole years they saw the suffering of their father. They saw how their father became weak, how he lost his eyesight, how his whole life he was just desperate for a news for his son. The father of Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam, he didn't lose hope. He had something was telling him, Yusuf is still alive. Yusuf is gone to a better place. Allah planned for the Prophet Yusuf to be separated from his father for so many years. He planned for Palestine to be occupied for so many years. In the Quran, there's another ayah that does say, if everybody on earth was an Islamic person, or if everybody was good, then Allah will truly remove us all and bring other people to have these conflicts. And again, this brings us to the beginning of what we said. Everybody is in a test. So alhamdulillah, we were in when you're in a test, you could just pray that you're either on the good part, or to pray for Allah that He guides you to see the truth and to know what the good is, what's actually happening. And that's what's happening to a lot of non-Muslim people. They, like, I receive a lot of messages from people saying, I never knew that Palestine was something like this. We thought people of Gaza weren't even people. We believed that they were terrorists. We believed that this and this and this, like, they're just, they don't deserve to live. But we see that you guys are just people like us, and even if we were put in a state that you guys were put in, we can't even handle for 1 hour. We can't handle being there for small amount of, like, 10% of the trauma that you guys are seeing or you guys are posting, and we're only posting 20% because we can't have a live in our life 24/7, due to the internet, due to the connection, due to the
And the censorship.
charge and everything.
You showed me some of your photos that you didn't post that were censored, and they're horrific. And so, like, it's also censorship as well.
So yeah, it's just the promoting idea of there are good people and there are bad people. You won't have anybody, like, we do believe in, if God wants anything to happen, He will just say kun fayakun, for it to be, and it will be. For so to believe, He will believe. But he has all these tests for people, and a lot of people are going to be arrogant just to give them the amplicity, or give them the level or the depth of the test that they're in. And at the end, you could just pray that, alhamdulillah, I am Muslim. At the end of the day, I'm not hating on any religion, or I'm not saying, uh, some religion is this and that. No, at the end of the day, even Islam is not forced upon anybody. It's either you do it on your behalf, on the choice that you choose, you learn about it, and then you decide to become a Muslim or not. But at the end, it's just all tests that people are put in, and it's what's shown in the Quran.
Yes, and I think you raised a very good point, because I've seen some of your posts where I think even our recent uh, revert brother Sean King, he commented and he said that what you were going through gave him some inspiration, and he sent that message to you before he became Muslim. And I think this speaks to um, the unintended byproduct of this conflict, is that people are the hijab or the veil has been lifted on the current world order, the liberal secular world order, that they have these fanciful notions of, we're humanitarians, we believe in these things like human rights, etc. Um, but in reality, it's all one massive scam. They've been selling the world on these beliefs, and they've supposedly been the moral leaders of this world. But this conflict has really lifted the veil, and now people are looking to alternatives. Yani people are on the streets at the universities. We see them protesting. They understand that that what is happening in Gaza is a reflection of capitalism on steroids. That the system itself is broken, and one of the hopeful things that I see anyway is that we're seeing people center what is happening on Islam. So it's not a call, it's not a call to communism. It's not a call to socialism. It's not a call to any other ideology except Islam. And this is what we see in what you've just described and documented with the people of Palestine. That it's precisely what Ibrahim alayhi salam said when he was thrown into the fire. Hasbunallahu wa ni'mal wakeel. It's precisely what the Prophet ﷺ said when people said, Inna nasa qad jama'u lakum fakhshawhum fazadahum imana wa qalu hasbunallahu wa ni'mal wakeel. That the people have gathered and conspired against you. So fear them, but the iman had increased, and they said hasbunallahu wa ni'mal wakeel. And we're seeing precisely this happening. So what this tells us is that this is the platform for the Islamic project. This is an Islamic project. What is happening now? That this is centered on Islam, and that's the I think one of the positive things, and you could say, to come out of this. In that post that I was speaking about earlier, where you talk about the importance of responsibility, and you were also addressing, the neighboring countries and saying that, oh, look, are you just, drinking your tea and watching what is happening idly and not doing anything about it? And we've also seen as well from Gaza, videos of, old people, for example, saying, pleading, where are the Muslim armies? Where are the Muslims to rescue us? And, I think one of the things that affected me was seeing an old man, and he was saying that I'm going to testify against you. And he's talking about us as an ummah. And I felt it actually, when he was saying it, because he said it so passionately. I'm going to testify against you on the day of judgment for this, for not doing anything. And what needs to be done? What needs to be done for victory to come in Gaza?
So when I had that post, or when I tended to talk about neighboring countries or leaders, it's because we know they have power, we know they have something that they can do, but I just don't know why they choose not to. At the end, they have their excuse of not. But and a lot of people actually would be afraid to say, like, oh, so and so, look at what's happening to us. So and so, look, these could be your people, these could be your kids, these could be your family. But the people of Gaza, they reach a point where they face death, they felt death, they've seen death. What more am I gonna face? What more am I gonna see?
And I think, generally with this next generation now, like you were saying, some people, they fear their thrones, they fear their positions, they fear their rizq and their livelihood. What we're seeing now with all these young people out on the streets, with gentlemen like yourself, for example, that are speaking publicly, openly, is that this barrier of fear and intimidation is no longer there. And that's why I think that this, perhaps, inshallah, we hope that is a watershed moment. It's something that's going to to change everything. And that's why the Prophet ﷺ had encouraged. He said about speaking out. He said, "Sayyid shuhada Hamza wa kalimatul haq inda sultan al jair." He said that the master of martyrs is Hamza, and the word of truth against the tyrant ruler. And this shows us that one of the keys to bring about change is to agitate, right? Then you need to disrupt the status quo. That our silence can be a means of maintaining the status quo, and it's one of the things that I read recently was, I think it was a quote by Noam Chomsky, where he talks about the parameters of discussion. And so when we talk about, for example, the issue of Palestine, it's within a sort of like secular framework where we can only discuss it, in a way which is, further reinforcing, U.S. foreign policy interests in the region. So even, for example, when we talk about a two-state solution, it's according to their terms, and also as well has the connotation of reinforcing this idea of an illegal occupation being legitimized. Okay, and so like all of these discussions are within that parameter. And I think what's happening now with the youth, one thing that's encouraging is that they're breaking those shackles now. And you're starting, for example, just young people like yourself, connecting things to Islam. The future is with Islam. The future is in having something which is Islamic focused. Lani, and we see this, like for example, with the example of Salahuddin al-Ayyubi. When it was when that part of the world, when Palestine was conquered by the Crusaders, Al-Aqsa, Bayt al-Maqdis, Salahuddin al-Ayyubi went on to reconquer it, and you see the mercy that he had shown to the people. So that's when people saw the justice of Islam. That's when people saw Islam being practiced and implemented right there and then. And so just to sort of cap things off, Yani, what's the message that you want to send to this younger generation now? We see thousands of young people on the streets in the West and in the Muslim world. You see thousands of young people, camping outside, in their campuses, protesting what's going on at the moment, protesting against this genocide, protesting against these universities that are providing cover and funding for this genocide. What message do you want to send to the youth?
So we always hear about Gen Z, or the new generation that's coming, that, oh, this generation is the generation of phones, this generation is a generation they don't want to learn, they just want to open a business from when they're young, they want to run life on their own way as if they're adults at a very, very small age. And then older people would be like, take your time and live, and like just walk with the flow that people before you have done. When we come to what happened in Gaza in the past couple months, and the encampments that happened in university, I believe the oldest person in university right now would be maybe a 2001, 2002, perhaps born in that year. So when you see that people in this age, they're not young people anymore. They're people that are supposed to shape the youth of the communities all around the world. So the youth of today are the leaders of tomorrow, which everybody believes in. These youth have done a lot, showing a message to their leaders. Does not matter about the reaction that's happening. It doesn't matter how they're being shot, but it matters on the actions that they had. It matters about the rage that they've shown. A lot of these people are not even they don't even know anything about Islam. They know nothing about Palestine. They know nothing about Gaza, but they took the moment to, I feel like they took the opportunity to, let's prove older generations that what they've been talking about us is not right. We're gonna do something to show them that, see, we've done something more than what you guys have done. We didn't matter about our degrees. A lot of people, They haven't been able to get their certificates. A lot of people have been kicked out of universities. A lot of people have been taken to jail. A lot of people have been under investigation. A lot of people have had their names like question marker on them. They're like, this doesn't even matter. What matters is either to get out a message or having this message to cause a reaction for the other person, because the louder you are, or let me say the louder and the worse the reaction is for the other person, that just means how strong your message is. That means how strong and loud what you're doing is and how much of an impact it has. So, for example, when we stay in campaigns in the United States and we see how the United States went against its own students and it's their people. These are the youth that are going to build and shape the future. If these youth have that inner thought, that inner idea, and like we can change something, then there definitely will be a change. When the reaction coming from the government is so brutal into hurting your own people, and something in a westernized country that you never see something like that. You never see government or like pulling out police forces and army forces to harm their own people. So when you see that, you know that these children, I don't know why I'm saying children. It's just you're just so I'm part of them. I'm not even I'm one of them. When you see these youth, they have this much of an impact. You get excited, you get surprised because you know that they will shape something better for the generations coming, and they did prove that people talking, oh, Gen Z is like other kids, their children just want to do this, and they've had a stronger word than a lot of people in power and authority. And just to link this to Islam, I'm myself, I'm not a scholar. I haven't studied uh, Islamic studies for my bachelor's or anything, but Islam comes for me. I've been born as a Muslim, so I come from a family that they enrich you with these Islamic virtuals, with halal and haram, and like we do this in our religion. It's based on this and this and this and that, and this stuff that you're being taught, even in Muslim families, some people they feel forced to a point that when they grow up a little older and they feel like they want to learn about Islam all over again on their own will, or like they see things. It's like my family have been teaching me this for so long, and it's just it's clicking for me now. Like I've seen a lot of I've even read a lot of people that graduate from Islamic schools, and then they graduate from uh, high school in a public school or an open space, and a lot of their testimonies or their words would be like, we've learned about Islam in a way that we felt it was more being pushed to us. We were more maybe forced to it, that we didn't really give it that much of its meaning. But when we were opened to more of a public place or more of a diversity around community, we understood the virtues, or we understood where what our family was trying to do. We understood where these virtues come from, and why they're there, why something is right for you to do, why you should wait for something, why this is why something is halal and why something is haram. The only two things that you can talk about. Like even there's a hadith that says in الحلال بين, halal is totally shown and haram is totally shown. وبينهما أمور مشابهات, and between them it's like
The gray area.
the dilemma that you're in, the gray area, the dilemma. It's like, wait, this could be halal, but it might be haram, and then this could, yeah. But Islam totally shows you that this is going this way and this is going this way. And then there's another ayah that says, وَلَا تَتَّبِعُوا خُطُوَاتِ الشَّيْطَانِ. It doesn't say don't go straight in the path. It says don't even go anywhere near or the smell of where the shaitan is or where any of these bad stuff are. Because we know as humans, we like to try stuff. We like to like, it's human nature that you want to go test something out or see something. But that's why you have rules that this should be done this way and this should be done this way. This is going to take you here and this is going to take you there. And we see it with a lot of people in, like I'm in Canada. I see it with a lot of Muslim people in Canada itself. Even people not they don't have to be in a westernized country. And people in Muslim countries too, they follow. They're like, okay, no, I know this is halal. I know this is haram. I'm not going to go to it. But they just slightly they go into it, and then step by step, they're deep in what's totally haram. So I'm just saying, I'm not any Islamic scholar to go and preach people, to make da'wah or whatsoever. Uh, I believe it's something really nice to have and do, but it comes with a stronger impact, especially as a youth. Like it's like he's a teenager or he's an adult. He should be going to a club. He should be having friends, girlfriends. He should be dating. He should be doing this and that. But it's like, let me study this person, or let me see. Okay, why isn't he doing this? And then you realize, wow, this is what his religion taught him. And then you start to learn more about this religion. It's like, this makes sense. I'm always depressed. There's this and this to do. I'm always angry. There's this and this to do. You feel like the Islamic actions that you're doing normally, because it's what you live off. People, when they observe it, and this happened a lot during the time I was in Gaza, a lot of people would be like, "And you've been through so much. You've seen death. You faced starvation. Why can't you just say, where is Allah?" A lot of people, a lot of messages were like, "Hey, where is your God?" And then I'm like, this is a test for us to believe more. And let me tell you something, my faith in Allah has even increased more. And you would get a lot of messages from people. More, the majority of the messages were like, we are learning actually about your religion. We want to know what's making you so resilient. We want to know, like, you've lived outside for your whole life technically, and you choose to stay there. You choose to follow these, like, you're not practicing in Islam in the highest way, yet you're doing these simple stuff that they click to people on the outside. And it shows that the Islamic actions you do is it's so much higher and so much bigger of an impact, rather than just going out and giving da'wah to people, because they'll be like, who is this? What do you want? Leave. I'm not interested. But when they see you do this action, when they see you, I was able to leave Gaza early on. I was able at least to go to the south, uh, pay, do some stuff, and be able to leave. But them seeing you choose to stay with people, them seeing you going to risky places in order to help people, or in order to show what's happening, is like, where does this come from? What are you built on from the inside? And a lot of people, they would ask me questions, and at that moment, I can't even think of what I want to answer. And I would tell them, listen, your answer, I might have it, but I don't want to give you the wrong understanding. Open up the Quran. Open it up on any page. The ayah you read, God will automatically, like subhanallah himself, will make you open the right place. But any place you open with any question you have, for Islam or against Islam or whatever, you will understand your answer will be with the verses that you start reading. And I find this a lot with myself, and sometimes I would be just like frustrated, or like, why is this happening, or like, how can this be real, how can this be true? And then I just openly, and God chooses you to openly open the Quran on a random verse, and you feel like, subhanallah, this makes total sense. The way how everything is running. Even yesterday, I was I opened it after I was just speaking with some friends, and I happened to do it at like a small masjid, and I opened the Quran randomly, and the ayah, or the surah I opened it on, was it's one of the strongest surahs, and this verse in the Quran, in this ayah, it's repeated after every other ayah. You probably know that ayah by now. فَبِأَيِّ آلَاءِ رَبِّكُمَا تُكَذِّبَانِ. You can translate it in a better way than I will. And it's like, in what miracles, or in what things of Allah that you're falsing, or you're not believing. And then you read the other ayah, or like the beginning of it, it's like Ar-Rahman, the merciful. And Ar-Rahman is just one of the 99 names of Allah. Allama al-Quran, he taught the book. Doesn't matter. Allama al-Quran, he taught the book. He taught all the books. He خلق الإنسان, he created the human. علمه البيان, he taught him what's right from what's wrong. And you're just reading all this, and then it goes on to how the verses of the universe and everything, and then it says, فَبِأَيِّ آلَاءِ رَبِّكُمَا تُكَذِّبَانِ. In what of these ayats are you not believing? He created everything, and he put everything just to make sense. If you want to go and search for the truth, you will find it. If you want to be arrogant and not understand, and keep going on with the ideas that are being published and shoved in everybody's head out there, you also have that's your option. You're being shown. everything that's happening. You're being shown, like Islam right now is, it's worldwide. Every place, I want to say every street maybe has a Muslim person living in it. Just watch their actions. I mean, not every Muslim is going to show you that you should be a Muslim. I might go to, if I was a non-Muslim and I went to a certain people of Muslims, or and saw how they were, I'm like, oh no, no, this is not the religion I'm looking for. But look at the right person and actually observe their actions and study what it's coming from. And then, if you don't want to do all that, just open up the. If you have any question, there is a book that has all these answers, that has everything, and you can translate it in any language you want. You will see how much sense it makes. That's just the a small letter I want to show, or give out to people. Don't go asking people, trying to wrong them. If you want to go and wrong somebody, do it. Doesn't matter. But go and look into the holy book. Look into the Quran, and I'm sure all your answers will be answered. All your questions will be answered.
Very powerful message to the youth, and inshallah, I'm hopeful that the youth will be a vehicle for change. We are seeing an Islamic intellectual revival amongst them, as you were saying, but as you also said as well, that tatabi'u khutuwat shaitan, it's important not to get deviated from the path, not to get enticed by non-Islamic concepts and ideas, and to get swayed off the path. Is very important to remain dedicated to Islam, have purity for or maintain that purity towards the Islamic Aqidah. And with that, Jazakallah khairan, barakallah fikum. It's been a pleasure having you on the podcast and listening to your experience. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward you, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alleviate the suffering of our brothers and sisters in Gaza. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala hasten the victory, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. And with that, we end the podcast. Jazakallah khairan for listening to this episode. And till we meet next time, وصلي اللهم وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.